To you by. Stand by, all stations. Stand by. Airing in 10 seconds. Hello, everyone. Sorry we're a little tardy this morning, but it's been a couple weeks, 3 weeks since we've had a show.
Detention.
And we're trying to remember how to do this. I'm trying to remember how to do this. And I think all the pieces are put together properly, and I think I'm about ready to go. Yes, the H5 recording button has been pushed. The light is steady red. And we just talked a little bit briefly before you joined us, and so it's going to be pretty much catching up live with everyone. So I'm looking forward to it. You guys ready?
Ready when you are.
All right.
Let it happen, Captain.
Yeah. Here we go.
This is SQPN, the StarQuest Production Network, leading the way.
You're listening to Catholic Weekend, episode number 290, for the week ending October 3rd. That's a Saturday. October 3rd, 2015. Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Roswell, Georgia. And joining me this morning is Maria Johnson in Conyers, Georgia.
Hi, guys. I am so happy to be back and back in the country.
We're so happy to have you on the show. And joining us from Oklahoma, Steve Nelson.
Happy October, everybody. Can you believe it's October?
Impossible.
No.
I stumbled on that actually at the show open. I'm thinking, October? And representing the western United States, Father Corey Stika.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a very wet day here in wet and chilly day here in Montana, but otherwise a good day.
Well, you know what? It's wet here in the southeastern United States as well. I guess maybe Steve's the only one that's dry in Oklahoma.
Yeah, so far, but it's chilly.
Yeah.
Chilly in Oklahoma standards, which means it's going to be like 70 today.
Wow.
Oh, terrible. Bring out the coat.
Yeah, it's you can tell there's a little bit of a little touch of fall here in Georgia the last several days with this rain coming in, and of course we have that low pressure system out there in the a couple low pressure systems. Of course, this is not a weather forecast or weather show, so I'll stop talking. But anyway, it's rainy. It's
Sometimes
cooler.
it does seem that way.
Yeah. You know, they always say, don't ever talk about the weather.
That's all we ever do, too, after beer.
Yeah.
Good beers lately.
Yeah.
That works too.
So, gosh, it's so nice to see you all. It's been, as I said, about 3 weeks since we last had our show. Now, the first weekend that we had off was mostly my fault and really lack of availability of any of the co-hosts to kind of do the show in my absence. I took a little off time to head up to Asheville to join my co-hosts on my Airline Pilot Guy show. We went up to the Brew Grass Festival, so it was like a beer festival with little tiny glasses to sample really, really good beer, and they had bluegrass, for the most part, music in the background on the stage, and it was a lot of fun. So that's why I wasn't here that week, and again, I think that there was only one or two of you that were going to be able to make the show, right? On that.
Yeah, I know I was gone both weekends, so.
Yeah, and I think Maria had already left for Cuba, which we're going to talk about here in a second. And so anyway, we decided we'd just take a week off. No big deal. And then the following week, I learned while I was on a trip that my sister had passed away in California. So I immediately went out there to help my nephews kind of make arrangements and that kind of thing. And so I was out there for a week, and they're still all kinds of things that need to be done. But I needed to come back to start flying again because that's how I get paid. So I'm back in town and flying again, and I'll have to make another trip or two in the next few weeks out to California to continue. And we haven't even set up a date for her funeral yet because the coroner's office hasn't released her. So it's a mess.
Oh gosh.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So it's budget cuts and such in Los Angeles County out there. That's the reason for that. So anyway, that's kind of a down note. Let's talk about something more positive, like, before we talk to Maria, I'd like to talk to everybody else because I have a feeling that Maria's, what she's been doing the past few weeks is going to take up a bulk of the show.
I don't want to be a hog.
Well, go ahead. Just do it. But anyway, Father Corey.
Just do it.
So you were gone for the last couple of weeks anyway. What have you been up to?
Well, it's been kind of an in and out couple of weeks. We had a couple of meetings that I had to travel for, and then so the reason why the first weekend I was gone, we had a diocesan summit. So we had to get together from all over the diocese to try to kind of get some plans for the future of the diocese, get some goals that the diocese can work on. And it's part of just trying to give the bishop and his staff some ideas of what people in the diocese see as important for the church, for the future of the church. And not surprisingly, some of the focuses were priestly vocations, or vocations in general, vocation, priesthood, and religious life, stewardship. I'm trying to think some of the other. Of course, it was 2 weeks ago, so of course I can't remember everything we came up with. But there's like 3 goals that were set out for. This is what we would like to see the diocese do going forward, to put their energy on. Whether or not it happens, of course, it's up to the bishop. He could scrap the whole process and just say, forget it, I'm going to do it this way. He's the bishop. He can do that. He might make some people mad doing that, but he can do that. So we had that, and then, of course, come back and do all my usual weekend routines. And then a parishioner last week ago Thursday, invited me out to their cabin up near Monarch, Montana, which is south of Great Falls. It's in this little mountain chain called the Little Belts. Beautiful area, absolutely beautiful area. So I went up for a couple of days and hung out with him and hung out in his cabin and just enjoyed, nature and relaxing and not having to worry about the parish for a couple of days. So that's where I was last Saturday, was coming back from there.
So what did you do up there? Anything fun?
Oh, we took 4-wheelers out and kind of cruised around the countryside, which was a lot of fun. If you've ever gone 4-wheeling out in the mountains, it's a lot of fun.
We're glad you didn't kill yourself. I am too. I hear that's dangerous.
We're gonna do.
Yes, they are.
We're gonna look up all of the 4-wheeler fails that are on YouTube.
Yeah, there you go.
There are a lot of them.
There are a lot of them. Generally, it's people doing something really, really stupid when they should know better.
Yes. So, Steve, what have you been
nature.
up to?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, just working. Lots of working.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm learning all kinds of things about running an association, a nonprofit association, that I never knew before. I never really wanted to learn, but I am learning it.
It's really good, interesting stuff, I'm sure.
Oh, taxes, 401k plans, all kinds of contractual things, event planning.
Nice. So
I
guess
it's all good stuff to know. I just don't want to learning it all at once.
So you're probably still recovering
just think
from
you could
that
be a wedding planner next.
No.
So, have you done anything in technology, like installed any new operating systems lately?
Yeah. So I took the plunge a few days ago and installed the new OS X El Capitan on my iMac, my old 2009 iMac.
How's that working out?
Well, pretty good actually. Here we're doing tech talk now, but when I loaded Yosemite on it, it slowed it down to like mud. But El Capitan has really speeded it up, put new life into it. I have to say though, it hates Google Hangouts worse than Yosemite did because it crashed right before the show.
So the laptop that you're using right now is that running El Capitan or is it
Yeah, it's
running?
running El Capitan, but
Oh,
for
okay.
some reason I don't know what's wrong with my. There must be like something in the video card that's not quite right or whatever. But
Mm.
Yeah.
it has not liked ever since we started using Google Hangouts. It has not liked it, and it was really mad this morning when it crashed.
Growled at everything. Rawr.
Yeah.
Uh, wow. Well, good to see you all, and of course, last but not least, Maria. So, last time we had
Sir?
you on the show, you were talking about leaving in a few days for your trip to Cuba. And so tell
Yeah.
us, how did that go? Hello?
Yeah, go. So many things. So many things. I think I packed like a lifetime into the 10 days I was there. Um, First of all, I mean, I went ostensibly to see the Pope, but it turned out not being about the Pope. It really turned out being about the family and a fantastic pilgrimage from the east coast of the island all the way to Havana. So, of course, the first several days I was there, it was all Pope all the time, and that was an amazing experience. We got into Cuba on Friday and reported to Holguin, which is the second city where the Pope celebrated Mass. So when I got there, my uncle, who's the bishop for the Pope's arrival, but his staff was there to receive us. We didn't stay in his house those first couple of days because the Pope was going to stay there. So so we were shipped off next door to it's like a bed and breakfast. You know, Cuba is still an authoritarian government. It still doesn't have a free economy, but they're loosening the hold on some privately owned things, and so people are turning their homes into like bread and breakfast kind of situations. It's still not quite what you would expect here in the United States, but you know, it was good and it was clean and it was very open and friendly, and the breakfast was delicious and wonderful. So we were like a block away from the Episcopal residence, and but our first night there, we checked in there first, and it was so cool because as we're getting a tour of the place, there were doors, you know, so all the bedrooms there that had beautifully hand calligraphy names on the doors, and I came up to one for the Holy Father, so I took a picture of that, and I said, "What is this?" And my uncle's assistant said, "Oh, that's where the Pope's going to sleep." would you Would you like to take a peek inside? Yes. So I creeped on the Pope's room and took lots of pictures. And
She's on his
so
bed
that was
doing like snow
Yeah.
angels.
super creeper. So I'll probably share those pictures at some point when I get my act together. And so that was great. And you know, so then we went out to get a bite to eat because it was getting late, and you know, the staff had shut down the kitchen there and everything. So we went to a little pizza place in the town. Everything is within walking distance from where we were, and it was so funny because I was there with my mom and her two sisters and their brother, and so it was four of the five siblings. My uncle, the bishop, of course, missing. And so we get there, and my uncle's an engineer, right? So he's a really practical guy. And we sit down at the table, and the waiter brings us menus with like pages and pages of options, and we're, you know, poring over what we could order for dinner, and he's looking at us, and he's, you know, he's like, "Suckers, let's put that away." And he gets up and he goes to the counter, and he comes back and he goes, "The only thing on the menu tonight is spaghetti or pizza with ham. Those are your options. Pizza with ham or spaghetti with ham." So we were like, "Oh, okay. I'm beginning to see how this week is going to go." So yeah, it's funny. So the next couple of days were really just exploring this town and getting to know, you know, the wonderful people that he works with in that community. And there's a group of consecrated women that spend time in Holguin and in Miami. So they take turns. They're American citizens who go down, and their mission there is a catechetical mission in the community. And so they're in and out. When their visa, when one's visa runs out, they trade out with the next one. And so there's usually about 4 or 5 living in this house. And about have a fantastic mission in that community. And it was really funny because one of them, when we went there to watch the Mass from Havana that Sunday morning, and it was so cute because the woman who met me at the door spoke to me in English, and I didn't even realize it until after I sat down. I'm like, wait, that was like perfect American English. What's up here? And so we had a nice chat. So we were, kind of gearing up for the Mass in Holguin, which was going to be Monday morning. And so I met the set designer. The guy who designed the set is a really good friend of my uncle's. So he brought him from Santa Clara to come over and design that set because it was kind of so it has this big thing on the top when I call it the set. The altar is in underneath it, but it had a big piece on the top that was a kind of an abstraction of Our Lady of Charity and the ocean waves behind it. It was really very beautiful. So he was the guy who designed that, and he was charming, and we had a great time that weekend. And then the Mass, which was 4 hours of sitting under the hot Cuban sun. It was the hottest time in the history of the world that I've ever spent. It was. I mean, you talk about mortifications. These were some serious physical mortifications. But, in the hours leading up to the Pope's arrival, there was prayer, there was a rosary, there were intentions. I took all of you to all of these things. When I tell you this was a pilgrimage, literally, truly, every day of my stay there, because we were staying in these Episcopal homes and the bishop's homes that were friends of his as we were moving across the island, I started the day in the chapel, in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and sometimes ended the day in the same place, and then masses, and then prayer along the way. And my uncle is so catechetical. Every opportunity, he gives you the history of it, and we begin with prayer, and it was a week-long retreat for me. It was really amazing.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. But the Mass was beautiful. Met the Pope, had a private audience with him. Got the selfie.
I saw that.
Yeah.
So it's not the one that you have the app on your phone that you have the selfie with the Pope. It's actually the Pope.
It's the real deal. He was so tired, and he had to have been so dehydrated because I told you it was the hottest ever. And I mean, what do they wear under those vestments? Because that's layers and layers of stuff that these poor guys are just pretending not to be sweating like hogs in, they're just he was pretty dehydrated. So some snarky person said, well, he doesn't look happy about the selfie, and I'm like, he was probably hoping that he could have a cold shower and take a nap.
Yeah.
Grab a drink and relax.
So how hot was it there? Was it like in the 90s?
It was blazing hot. It was, I don't even know. It was 34 degrees that day. So whatever that,
that's in the 90s.
That translation.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like mid-90s.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So, and in direct sunlight, because anyway, it was an awesome experience, and he's so sweet and so tender. And in a self-serving manner, I'm going to direct you over to Alatea to read about it. Well, because I made John Clem's picks, but thanks, John. But it was just such a remarkable experience to just. I mean, he took my hand so warmly and was looking into my eyes, and we had a nice little private conversation, about family and things, and then I just asked him, Holy Father, can I take a selfie for my kids? Because they were the ones that were egging me on, and and he was so sweet. He was like, yeah, and he smiled, and I took two. And in the other one, he is smiling, but something happened with the flash and the way that it looked, and it was really just overexposed. So it's not a good picture. But he was very sweet. And I got a beautiful rosary. And
nice.
Yeah, he gave me a beautiful
Wonderful.
rosary, and it was just a lovely experience to see him. And then we went to after he'd left the country, my uncle came back and joined us, and we went down to the Basilica Shrine of Our Lady of Charity, where he had just been. And I mean, it was moments after he had left that they'd locked the shrine up because everybody went to go, say goodbye to the Pope. So we were in there, in the same condition that it was left in when the Pope left.
Mm.
And we went down there and we had lunch at the seminary with the cardinal and the rest of the bishops, and I met the
Wow.
nuncio, and we were sitting with the Swiss guard that were left behind from the Spanish team, because the English-speaking team joined him on the plane to come to the United States. So those guards who had been in black all week were like stripping. We were all having beers, and it was funny because the bishops came back and they were all in their cassocks, and they were greeting me very formally, and they said, "We'll be back in a minute," and they came back in guayaberas, the light linen shirts, the tropical shirts. So they came back and we were all like cracking open beers and talking and having a great time. It was surreal.
So this was after the Pope left, right? You
After
didn't
the
crack
Pope.
open some beers with the Pope?
That's right. Not with the Pope, but with the bishops were hilarious. The cardinal kind of excused himself. He was like, "Thanks, Your Eminence, for hanging out with us for 2 minutes. Go do your thing." He probably went to take a nap because he's getting on in years too. But
Aren't we all?
it was so funny. So we were like, "Oh, well, the shrine is locked," and my uncle's like, "I'm the bishop of this place." So, so he looks around. So he looks around the room, and the rector was there. So he called him over, and we got a private tour of
Oh,
the
wow.
shrine. So we went up. Yeah, he unlocked the door. So we walked in through the back because there were some santeros there. The voodoo, the synchronist, what is
Oh,
this?
right.
You know what I'm saying? And they were there to do some funny business. So we were like rushing through, and the rector was like, "Come on, old ladies, move, because I want to lock the door after you get in here." So we came in through the back. So we walked through the sacristy where St. John Paul II's vestments were,
Oh,
and the
wow.
vessels that he used for the Mass. So I got pictures of that. And then when we turned around, so we were getting the tour with the rector, and my uncle was with us. He was just kind of hanging around, which is why I told you this turned into such a catechetical event. But when we turned the corner and we were in the sanctuary, actually, my uncle goes, "Oh, well, here's an extraordinary situation for you," and he was delighted and looked at us and brought us in quickly. The statue of Our Lady that is usually housed 30 feet in the air in a bulletproof glass box was on the altar because it was literally left the
Oh,
way
wow.
that that it was left for Pope Francis. So his flowers were there. We were right up where the golden rose was that John Paul II had left for her, and a
Wow.
beautiful urn that Benedict had left. And so I took a selfie with the image, with the statue of Our Lady.
So Maria.
It was really amazing. But my favorite part was that the rector was there. So I had a copy of my book, and I said to the rector, I said, can I leave my book here as an offering to Our Lady, as a gift? And he said, of course. He says, I'll document it. So I did. I was able to leave my book as an
What
offering
is
to Our
this?
Lady of Charity.
What is this badass?
My, oh, they all knew. They all knew. They all laughed. So they all got a good chuckle out of it. So I did. So I left it down there, and we were traveling with a friend who's a journalist, and so she took pictures of me laying the book down on the rector says that the gifts go on the top step of the leading up into the altar. So I left it there. There were other offerings there, some flowers and things. And then I asked him. I said, well, what do I do now? Do I take it back or what? And he says, oh no. He says, I archive everything. He says, so it will go in with the other books and stuff. So I'm archived there at the shrine now
Wow.
with Hemingway and others. It's
What's ironic is that when she laid it up there, she saw there were about a dozen books by Lisa Hendy already there.
Yeah. I took Hello Kitty with me to Cuba, so there are a couple of pictures of Hello Kitty
Nice.
to send to Lisa now when I'm done.
So
that was pretty amazing. That was, very, very special to be able to do that.
what was the best part of that trip? I know there's so many memories you have, but what would you say is the most precious to you?
The most precious part of the whole trip is being able to reconnect with family and all the visits with all the people that we made along the way. And I'll be writing about this specific theme, but I guess it's not spoiling it to tell you guys about it. The theme of the Pope's visit was missionary of mercy. And one of the things that he talked about privately with my uncle, and I guess it's not too much to share, is how very little we really pay attention to what the works of mercy are.
Mm.
And for me, that whole week was spent in active works, corporal works of mercy. We visited so many people. We went to see so many people who were sick, who were elderly, who were hungry, who were desperately poor. And we went to the grave site, where my grandparents are buried, and prayed there, and prayed at the tombs of other people that were important, in my family's life. So it was truly, works of mercy the entire week, and that was my favorite part. I mean, you'd think, oh, the selfie with the Pope, how could that be secondary or tertiary? Really at the end of the list of things, but it was that beautiful experience of actually, starting each day with Jesus and being his hands and feet during the day and ending the day, in the chapel in these places. And some of them had, they had the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. So I actually went to adoration several times in different places. So it was gorgeous. Not to mention the amazing fact that my uncle was celebrating Mass for us every day. So he had to celebrate a Mass anyway. He might as well do it for the group. So that was nice. So it was a true pilgrimage. It really was.
I just reread the post you had about when you were leaving, all the pictures of the airport, and talking about how back in the 80s when they first could do flights over, humanitarian flights back to Cuba, it was a very somber affair. But this time it was a party.
Oh
in the
man.
airport.
I've got to tell you, it was so amazing. We were we were all waiting, obviously at the airport. Leaving the country was easy. Leaving the United States was easy. Leaving Cuba was a 16-hour nightmare. It was just terrible. But when we landed in Cuba that night, I mean, we were talking to people at the airport before we were leaving Miami, and the majority were going for the Pope's visit. Some were just actually coincidentally going to visit family because it's a charter. Mm-hmm. But the majority were going to go to visit the Pope. Many returning to Cuba for the first time. And I don't know what happened, but at some point on the plane, my mother had said to her seatmate that it had been 50 years since I had been in Cuba. And so word spread, and everybody was like, oh, so like I became like the celebrity for the moment. It was kind of nice. Wishing me well and everything. But do you remember those? Well, I guess everybody here were about of the same age. Remember back in the days of early flying for us, how number one, people dressed up to fly, and number two, when you landed, there was applause. When we landed in Cuba, there was such a cheer that went out. It was really, really moving, and we, it's a small airport in Holguin, so we stayed on the tarmac and had to walk across, into the terminal, and it just felt like some movie out of 1959 or something.
Well, when I fly, when I land, I always hear applause. But actually, it's because the people are just so frightened and so happy to be on the ground that they're still alive.
I knew that was coming. So leaving Cuba was an ordeal, and the crew timed out. So we had to wait for another flight.
What airline was it?
Not yours.
Well, you could say which one it was, or can't you?
I can say it was American. I don't know. It was American Airlines. It was a charter, and it wasn't their fault. I think it was just the lack of
No,
organization.
yeah, we have rules that
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
So that was
Fascinating.
it was an amazing trip. Truly amazing. Totally off the grid. No Wi-Fi available. No, the moment when I had a little bit of internet, what I needed to get to was blocked.
Oh, that's
So-
funny.
How about cellular? Did they have any of that?
Yeah, they do. Everybody has a cell phone. They all have smartphones, and they all text constantly. They just don't necessarily have access to the internet. And in the places where they do have access, it's usually like beamed into like a town center, like in the park. But it's very, very expensive. Remember back in the AOL days when we were all terrified that the internet would be charged by the minute, like a long distance phone call or something like that?
Mhm.
That's how it is. So very, very expensive. It's not that it's inaccessible, it's that it's really unaffordable.
It's only accessible to the people that can afford it.
That can afford it, yeah.
Hmm.
Which is practically no one. So I walked into. Did I tell you about the town square blowing up my Wi-Fi?
Mm-mm.
So I took my nice camera to take pictures, which I'm embarrassed to say I took 2,000 pictures. I don't know what I'm going to do now. It was insanity.
You keep 100. And you
I
get
keep
rid of
100, right? And I get rid of 1,900. So I'm gonna see who my real friends are when I say, "Hey, you want to come over and look at my pictures?" No.
I'm busy.
Provide beer, lots of it.
Lots of beer. I brought back some Havana Club, so yeah. But yeah. But I took my phone, even though I didn't do the international plan, because I thought it would be great, just to have as a. I mean, it was a brick, but it was good for pictures. Especially in situations where having that big old camera wasn't going to be useful to me, like the selfie PS. But so I had the phone with me. Well, I didn't realize that I had it on, the Wi-Fi was on. I didn't realize that I'd left the Wi-Fi on.
Ooh.
So, I mean, it wasn't doing anything. It was just sucking juice, right? But I was charging the phone every day. They're on 110 too, so it wasn't a hassle. I was just recharging in the evenings. But I walked into this town square where they were beaming in Wi-Fi, and my notifications blew up, and I got like 100 notifications in 30 seconds. It was like it was awful, and and it gave me the option to be able to read them, to access whatever the internet was at 50 cents a message.
That's international rates.
And I was like, nope, none of this. So I turned that mess off. But so that was what these poor folks are paying for. I think they paid an equal amount in whatever the currency is. They have a hard currency and a soft currency, so it's even more prohibitive for them to be able to have any kind of purchasing power.
Have you been? Was this the first time since your family left when you were a young child?
Yeah, 50 years almost to the date.
Mm.
I left in October of '65, and I returned in September of '65. So I was a couple of weeks shy of exactly 50 years.
So I was going to ask if there's any, if you noticed any signs of this new opening of relations with the United States. But since this is the first time you've been there for 50 years, you probably didn't notice any.
Yeah.
Well, signs like what? Like for example, there has been a loosening of private property and private business. So there are a lot of entrepreneurial things happening that used to be black market and are now open. But we ate one day at what I would have to say is the restaurant equivalent of a speakeasy.
Mm.
We drove down this street in a regular, in the town neighborhood, pulled up in front of a house that was, dilapidated like everything else. It didn't look extraordinarily different from anything else. Knocked on the door. The lady of the house opened the door like in her house coat. Okay. They had some company in the living room that was visiting, or maybe it was like the old people that lived there, like maybe the parents or grandparents. We walked through the living room, past the kitchen, down a hallway that looked like it had storage. There was like a bicycle tire there, and a garbage can, and some boxes. Out into the patio in the backyard that was like this wonderland paradise of a beautiful restaurant complete with a bar.
Hmm.
And that's where we ate.
It's amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was talking to the guy who spoke English, so when he found out that I was American, he was really interested in practicing his English, which was very good. He was an English teacher there, and wrote a book, so I took a picture. I'll put him up probably on some blog post at some point. But so that was really cool. And so I asked him, well, what's the deal? And he says, well, he's an English teacher and his wife is a doctor. And the way that they make ends meet is because they run this restaurant out of their backyard. So I'm sure that there are very little regulations, in terms of what they're serving, and unlike in the United States where you have to have a rating for it. But yeah, so they were running this restaurant out of the back of their house, super secret. It was like a speakeasy.
Huh. It's incredible.
And it was like that, yeah.
Wow. I'm sure there are still many, many more things to talk about on your trip, but let's take a break and bring in Alan Marchand and his band playing Punxsutawney Phil. And this is the point where we say thank you, thank you, thank you. This show is brought to you by listeners and viewers like you. Do I sound like NPR? We exist here at the StarQuest Production Network on your donations, and we do appreciate your help with that. If you want to be a friend of SQPN, please head over to sqpn.com, and there you'll find a very handy button that says donate, or you can just go to sqpn.com/donate, and you'll be presented with several different ways to support the show financially. We have like recurring donations or one-time donations. We take it all. And if you also want to help us with your digital shopping, if you use Amazon.com, please remember to go to sqpn.com, click on the appropriate link before you do your shopping, and a portion of your purchase will go to the network. And again, little by little, a few pennies here, a few pennies there really add up. And so thank you for your consideration when you do your shopping on Amazon.com. And then finally, Bluehost. If you're looking for a web hosting service for your brand new blog or your podcast or whatever you're doing out there on the internet, Bluehost is a great choice, and they're a partner of the StarQuest Production Network. If you sign up with them, we get some money from them, which is a good deal for all of us. And we actually practice what we preach. I mean, some of us, Steve and Maria and Father Roderick himself, use the services of Bluehost.com. So I guess you could say that we use it and we highly recommend it. So thanks again for all of your support. And thank you, Alan Marchand et al. All right. We are back, and do you want to shift gears a little bit and talk about some feedback that we've received?
Let's do it.
Okay. By the way, if you want to send feedback, well, you can do it by posting comments on the website, sqpn.com/CatholicWeekend, or you can send it directly to catholicweekend@sqpn.com, our email address for feedback. This is from Vanessa. She says, LOL. Thought you would get a giggle out of this. In the attempt of fixing the sound on my desktop computer after gleefully updating my OS to Windows 10, I opened up iTunes and started playing a past episode of Catholic Weekend. Joyfully, I got the drivers working and went off to get ready for my day. I left to do some errands, mentally occupied by where I needed to go. Returning home several hours later, I walked in and suddenly heard this strange man's voice coming from inside my apartment. Vanessa. And let's see, I started to run out, but stopped when I realized the voice had stopped and the song Oklahoma started playing. Confused, I slowly entered and then started laughing loudly. I had left iTunes open and had continued to play back through previous episodes of Catholic Weekend. Thank you for your conversations, your laughter, and your occasionally scary voices.
She must have been talking about you.
I love that she called you a strange man.
Yeah. Believe me, Vanessa, once in a while we have the same feeling. We want to run out of the room.
That strange man. Well, I've been called worse, that's for sure. Let's see. Speaking of laughing, she says she loves laughing and all that kind of stuff. We also received some feedback. I'm not going to mention the name. This person says, I used to enjoy listening to Catholic Weekend, but lately is just a laugh and a joke fest. Sorry, but it's time for me to move on. Just thought you might want to know.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't have this button up. So we're sorry that you feel that way, and we're hoping that you're enjoying whatever podcast you're listening to now. Let's see. And then from Scott. Scott is a little particular when it comes to the way we pronounce things, as I am on my show. Many of you know that I have a thing about the correct pronunciation of the word potable. It's not potable. It's potable. Anyway, we're talking about graphic image file format. Is that what the GIF?
Graphic image format.
Graphic image format.
And, this isn't going to be good.
So this is a thing that people have been arguing about for years and years and years, probably since it's been invented. And apparently, the guy that invented the GIF says it's pronounced like peanut butter GIF, GIF. But a lot of people say graphic, that has a kind of a hard G sound. I think it's really GIF. And so Scott says it's pronounced like the peanut butter. Saying it wrong is almost as bad as pronouncing potable wrong. So anyway, sorry, Scott. But I think that that's one of those things that is never going to be resolved, because there are people that claim that GIF is correct and some claim that GIF is correct.
GIF.
Is a good peanut butter. Not an interchange format.
Are you saying Jeff?
All I can think of is I'll take potables, Alex.
Yeah.
Potent potable.
Potables.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is why I know that's the way you pronounce that word.
Because of Jeopardy.
Because Alex Trebek,
If he pronounces it that way, then it must be right.
I heard he made a mistake once.
Did he really?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, it might be a rumor.
Heard what?
Pot and potables.
Let's see. Did you guys know that Chris Farley was Catholic?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think his best buddy was a priest. Did you see? I saw the special that they did.
Yeah. Well, agency, and how Chris Farley used different character names for his stand-up. And so he always changed them, and usually it was one of his friends' names. And I guess he had a character that was a motivational speaker, Matt Foley.
Greatest character.
Yeah, well, that was named after Father Matt Foley. And so they talked about how he called him up once, and he said this was Matt Foley, and then Chris hung up on him. And he goes, no, this is really Father Matt Foley. Anyway, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Farley attended daily mass in college, and had his friend come over to bless his apartment when he moved to New York City.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the story, Chris Farley's story is really tragic. I mean, in the traditional sense of the term, because he did have a deep faith, from what I understand. You know, of course, we hear it all later on, and I hate to say it, but after someone dies, we generally have the tendency to canonize someone.
Yeah.
You know, and you want to avoid that. But at the same time, you know, it's not like he did have a very deep faith, but he also had a very troubled life. You know, he dealt with depression. You know, that's the interesting thing. A lot of those people who become comedians, professional comedians, they do so because they are dealing with depression and other mental issues like that, and that at least the comedy will ease them out of it for a while. And unfortunately, Chris Farley fell into drugs and alcohol, and it went downhill from there.
Yeah, that's a shame. I mean, like, well, there's so many examples of, as you say, comedians suffering from depression and other, you know, things.
I think it happens a lot with creative people, you know, actors, actresses, musicians, authors, composers, poets.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. You know what this reminded me, though, that you're bringing up Chris Farley, was so when Pope Francis was in Philadelphia and they had that, I don't know, sort of prayer thing the night before, I guess it was Saturday night, and I guess it ran a little bit long or whatever, but Jim Caviezel was supposed to speak during that, and he was right there on stage, and he got cut from the program because it was running long, and I felt really bad for him.
Wow.
Because, you know, I mean, we know that, you know, he's a faithful person and everything, but, you know, I just felt really bad that his part of the show with Pope Francis got cut. So.
What was that? What's the comedian's name? The Catholic comedian.
Gaffigan.
Jim Gaffigan.
Is that the same event that you're talking about?
Yeah, and Mark Wahlberg was the MC for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And Matt Maher performed as well.
Yeah.
I think. I was watching some of the
Festival of Families. You know, I have to catch up on the Pope's visiting Cuba on YouTube because I didn't have TV, and then I was in Cuba during his visit here. So I don't know anything that's going on except for the snippets that I've heard from people.
Well, I hung on every word that I could. I was streaming it in my office while I was working. I really didn't get a whole lot done while he was here.
I'm sure a lot of people.
What's interesting was, you know, watching the secular coverage, and CNN really did a great job of their coverage on it. I think more so than most any other news agency out there. And they were talking about this, you know, Matt Maher, and at first they thought that it was the other Maher. What's that idiot?
Bill Maher.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that had the show on HBO.
Yeah, Bill Maher.
Yeah, Bill. I'm sorry, I thought you said Phil. Yeah, Bill Maher, and they thought, wow, this is going to be interesting. That he's going to be, you know, at one of these events for the Pope, and I think, and they'd never heard of Matt Maher. They were like, well, who is this guy? I never, you know.
Yeah. But you know, so he was in Washington D.C. and then New York and then in Philadelphia, and each of those three cities had a different flavor to it, and I loved it. I especially liked the images of Pope Francis speaking to Congress, because he was like this bright white standing in the midst of all these dark suits, you know, and it was such a powerful image to me.
Yeah.
Of him standing up there, and he was so humble in what he talked about, and I don't know, I loved every minute of it. It was a little bit of a digital pilgrimage for me, because I made every attempt to watch all the masses and all his talks and everything. So it's great.
I was very impressed by the effect that he was having on people that were not, you know, religious people at all. Again, going back to CNN's coverage, and many of them just kept going over. Everything was overwhelmingly positive about everything that he was saying and doing, and just the peace that he seemed to bring. It was. I was very encouraged by the whole thing, and we'll see, of course, how long that lasts. But it was. It was great at the time. What do you think, Father Corey?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to see a lot of it. I did watch the mass from D.C. there on the side of the National Basilica, and it was it's just a wonderful experience to watch that, and you know, just beautiful, the people and everything. And I had to laugh because during the visit I had to do some work. I'm the the chair of the priest council, the president of the priest council for this diocese, which sounds more prestigious than it really is. It just happened to be my turn, and I had to work with our bishop on agenda for an upcoming meeting. Well, the bishop was there, so I sent him the email with, okay, here's the draft agenda, and he sends back, this looks good and all this, and P.S. I just got to shake the Pope's hand and visit with him for a few minutes. It's like, name drop much? You know? And then, of course, I see Maria's pictures. It's like, I'm the only person who doesn't get to meet the Pope.
Well, you didn't get to meet
I think
him,
I'll just step out now.
But no, it was just, everything I've heard, and what would just I love hearing too, and kind of touched on it. Steve kind of touched on it, the reaction of other people. People who aren't Catholic or aren't even Christian, the reaction towards him. And it's kind of an amazing thing. Getting a little more political, it's also good to see commentators kind of calling out those who are, the Pope's a liberal, the Pope's a this, Pope's a that. It's like, knock it off, he's Catholic.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's certain commentators who, if it doesn't fit within their view of conservatism or liberalism, they're going to call it out. It's like, this guy's not a real conservative, he's a liberal. He's not a real liberal, he's a conservative.
Yeah.
And there are other commentators out there now that are kind of saying, you know what? He's Catholic. He's teaching what the Catholic Church teaches. There are certain things in conservatism that are Catholic. There are certain things in liberalism that are Catholic. There are certain things in both that don't match the Church at all.
We should have our own political party.
Well, one of the things that Pope Francis said in Cuba was that we need to get away from ideology, and we need to absolutely move away from that and quit identifying ourselves as the Church is this or the Church is that.
Exactly.
The Church is what it is.
Exactly. We're following Christ. We're not following a political agenda.
Right. Right.
I think a lot of people's reaction is that people have this yearning to have something to hope for, when everything seems everything's negative all the time, and the news is just one bad thing after another. I think people were really liked having something hopeful to concentrate on.
Exactly.
I had to.
What was that?
I guess I need to eat.
Otis saying hi?
And John must have just come home, and we're teaching Otis to talk, and so we're trying to teach him to say I love you.
Well, that's a great segue into this. It's not really a great segue, but I'm using it that way. It's time for the picks of the week. We only have a few minutes left in this week's episode. Thank you. Those are the dogs of the week.
He's calling me for lunch.
Oh, he's great. What a great dog.
My pick of the week is Otis. Come up here, Otis. Come here. Come up here.
Oh, he's even there.
Yeah. He came to get me for lunch. John has done a really good job of training him to come and get me.
That's funny.
That's funny. Well, so, Maria, why don't you give us your pick first, and then you can go and feed Otis.
Feed me. John brought lunch.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm hungry.
My pick of the week is the Catholic Hipster Podcast with Tommy Ty and Sarah Vabulous, in case we know where she's slacking off of here to go over there. But I was their guest this morning talking about Hello Kitty and Cuba and the Pope. And so episode 7 of the Catholic Hipster Cast, or the Catholic Hipster Podcast. Yep.
Excellent. Great show. And who is this Sarah person you're talking about?
Who is she? We don't know.
Name sounds familiar. I think I've met her before somewhere.
Yeah. Once upon a time. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Who wants to go next for their pick? Steve?
Well, I didn't really think of anything, but I would just say that for those of our listeners that want to have a more personal perspective on the Pope's visit, go out and check out the things that Lisa Hendy and Pat Gone have posted, and then the Among Women podcast and that Pat does and things like that, because I had such a blast following them and their own personal experiences that they had in Philadelphia with Pope Francis.
Excellent. As always, great women to follow regardless, but sounds like they covered the Pope's visit well, and I'll have to check that out as well. Let's see, my pick, if you don't mind, Father Corey, I'm going to jump in here. I actually have one, so that's why I'm excited.
Yeah, better get it taken care of.
One of our listeners to this show and also my aviation show, Dan Faulkner, he is in New Zealand, and he, with inspiration from Father Roderick and myself and all of us on Catholic Weekend and SQPN, decided, darn it, I'm going to start my own podcast, and it is called the Catholic Convert Podcast, a detailed look at converting to the Catholic faith. And here, let me play a little bit of the show open, see if that comes through.
This week on the Catholic Convert Podcast, we introduce ourselves, talk about some of the early challenges faced by converts, including the sign of the cross and reading the Bible, actual prayer and confession, and making it to Mass on time. Stay tuned. There
you go. That's a little bit of the beginning of his show. That was the episode 000. So that was the pilot, I guess you'd say.
Wow.
And,
000. He's hopeful.
Yeah.
We know it.
What?
We know what those pilot podcasts are like.
Yeah. What, does somebody
Did we ever release ours?
Oh,
Jeff?
no, don't do it. Don't do it.
We played it a few times. It's pretty bad. So he has 2 episodes, the pilot episode, and then, of course, his first episode, the Tiber Swim Team. So
Sweet.
check out Dan's podcast along with some other panelists, an international panel of folks for his show, CatholicConvertPodcast.com.
Cool.
Is where you'd find it. So there you go. Just wanted to mention that. And Father Corey.
Well, my pick of the week is something I hope I can take advantage of here at some point for a good vacation / retreat. There are a couple of hotels that in California, the Meritage Resort and Spa in Santa Barbara, or in the Napa Valley, or the Baccarat Resort and Spa in Santa Barbara. They're owned by a Catholic business owner who's offering free of charge to let any priest or bishop stay at this resort so long as they celebrate Mass every morning while they're there.
Oh, neat.
So these are very luxurious looking resorts, and all the priest has to do is celebrate Mass, and they get one room offered with 2 beds free of charge. The bishop or priest can have lunch in the employee restaurant for free, or go eat at the regular restaurants for a 30% discount, not counting alcohol. I think he knows priests a little too well. You offer him a discount on alcohol, and they'll drink them dry.
Put him out of business.
So it sounds like a fantastic thing. And I mean, shoot, I'll go and say Mass every morning if I can then go and kind of relax in the Napa Valley, which is absolutely beautiful area. Or Santa Barbara area.
Sounds like a full-time job to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no kidding. So it's at clergyhospitality.org. So if you know a priest or a bishop who needs a break, needs to take some time off and go and relax and just relax, take a retreat somewhere, this sounds like a pretty good opportunity. So I'm definitely hoping to get out there and take advantage of it at some point.
Awesome. Okay. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes. So if any priest or bishop is listening to the show, they can.
Well, like I said, if you know someone.
Now you know.
Yeah.
That's true. Excellent. Well, speaking of excellent, I've been listening off and on to Okay, so you're going to your parish church, and pastors. Hey, he's a cool guy. He's a nice guy, but maybe his homilies aren't very good. To listen to some fantastic homilies, fathercorey.org, frcorey.org, and I like to listen to Father Corey's homilies. Father, you do a fantastic job. So I just want
appreciate that. I really do appreciate that.
And again, that's where you can find Father Corey, frcorey.org. And if you want to feed Otis, where would we go for that?
I better give my contact info and go.
Before he starts attacking you.
Yeah.
Please follow me at Bago on Twitter, and read my blog, mariamjohnson.com, and where I link out to where I'm appearing at Alatea, Catholic Mom, a couple of other places coming up. So stay tuned to that. My book's coming out soon, My Badass Book of Saints. You can still pre-order it on Amazon. and word by word with Mary that I did. That's not the right title of it, but I'm featured in it. Sarah Reinhardt compiled a collection of reflections on each word of the Hail Mary. And so I'm in there. Sarah Fabulous is in there. A bunch of other people that you recognize took a stab at little reflections on the Hail Mary. So that's available yesterday. You might want to get that soon.
Right.
And that's it, guys. Thanks. I better go feed Otis.
All right. Get
Bye.
out here.
Love you.
And finally, last but not least, Steve Nelson. And everything Esteban. I noticed you had some photography there of the blood moon.
Yeah. I stood out on the vacant lot next to my duplex here and got eaten by mosquitoes while I was taking pictures of the moon. The things I do for my art.
For your art. Yes, the sacrifices you make.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to check out that and other great stuff on Steve's blog, head over to everythingesteban.com. And I'm the Airline Pilot Guy. You can check out all my stuff on airlinepilotguy.com. And until next week, we are hoping that you have a great Catholic weekend, a great Catholic week. Take care, and God bless.
SQPN, leading the way in Catholic new media.
Yeah, I had to stop it.
I heard that.
Maria
Getting a
was
little
taking
rusty.
too long on her lead out or whatever you call it. No, it's just like I thought I'm just going to let it run. I'm not going to stall it this time. So I should have stopped it. But anyway. Oh well, thanks everyone for joining us this weekend, and we're sorry that we've been absent the past couple of weeks, but we're back, and we're glad that you're still there with us.
Mike says that we need to start calling you Captain GIF.
Captain Jiff.
Captain Jip.
Captain GIF.
It looks like they at some point they lost video of our thing of our hangout, but the audio was there the whole time. That's good.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Thank you, everyone in the chat room. Mike, thanks for taking notes. Sarah Boyle, hey, how you doing? Cliff and Marika and John Clem and others. I'm sure I missed somebody. Joanne was there. I don't know if she still is. Lynn, is she there? No, that's September.
No, she's not.
Sorry, I'm scrolling backwards and
Last week,
last
3 weeks ago. Yeah, last month.
So anyway, thanks everyone for hanging out with us on this week's Catholic Weekend episode. I'm going to cut it off because I'm going to do a live recording of my show here at hopefully 1 o'clock with my co-hosts, the Airline Pilot Guy show.
Cool.
So anyway, got some more prep work to do, and I need to grab a bite to eat so my stomach doesn't sound like Otis.
Yeah. I got a football game to go to.
Who are they playing?
Oklahoma State is playing Kansas State here in Stillwater. I've missed all the previous games, so I'm looking forward to this one.
That should be a good game. There's a big game here in outside the Atlanta area today in the afternoon. University of Alabama and University of Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think Notre Dame and Clemson are playing today.
That's right. I think they're playing tonight or something. And I was watching something about, they were talking about the weather, and they said, "Yep, we're going to do it," regardless of the miserable weather for everyone. So that's.
Yeah, I kind of like watching those games, where it's pouring down rain or snow. I feel for the players, but I kind of like watching the games.
Oh, I love watching them in my nice warm house on the TV.
Yeah. Well, yeah, me too. Yeah.
Last night we had high school football, and the high school football field is like 3 blocks. I walk to it all the time, but not last night because it was raining and it was cold and miserable. And oh, by the way, the final score was 50-14. It's like, not worth it.
I feel sorry for the people in the stands and the stadiums. At least the football players are out there moving around, and I think it's more miserable for the people who are just sitting there, with their ponchos on and
Drinking
shivering.
a beer you don't notice. Oh,
well, that's true. Maybe they're lubricating themselves with.
You ever see those college students where they're out there? It's like 30 degrees, it's snowing, and they're shirtless with the body paint and everything. Yeah, they're well lubricated.
Yes, a lot of what do they call it? The stuff that you put in your radiator.
Antifreeze.
Thank you, antifreeze.
There you go. There you go.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me, and thanks everyone in the chat room and all that. And Mike, again, thanks for taking over for Lynn with the show notes. Much appreciated. So we'll see you next week.
See
All
y'all.
right.